Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting of October 7th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item on the agenda, just a reminder, Fire Prevention Week is October 6th to the 12th, and there's going to be an open house at the fire department on October 9th from 5 to 9 p.m. So just another reminder. I think I've seen signs up. There's a sign behind us. But second item, Mark, we're going to consider a request to place signs on town property for Trees for Hope.
I move to allow the nonprofit Trees for Hope Committee to place signs in Mendon to advertise their Trees for Hope Festival being held at St. Gabriel's Parish in Upton on December 7th and 8th, 2013. The 36-inch by 36-inch freestanding signs may be placed at the following locations on November 17th and remove on December 9th. Island at intersection of North and Milford Street, which is Route 16. Island and intersection of Millville Road and Route 16. Island at intersection of Providence Street and Hartford Avenue East.
Step down in second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next item, I want to just jump down one item to the discussion on the Cumberland Farms easement on North Ave. So come up and join us if you're here for that discussion. Hello again.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Okay, so my understanding is, based on our last discussion, you've redrawn some plans
Yes.
you've shared with us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have some extras if that would assist.
Hold this up for the camera. So I think that the question was, how do we retain access to the property in the back with the easement being requested around the well, correct?
That's certainly one of the issues, yeah.
So there is a, just for the folks watching, there is a plan here that demonstrates we have an ability to get back to the back acreage, maintaining the easement being requested around the well.
Yeah, we took the liberty of doing drawing a 50-foot wide access, which, as you know, is much wider than a regular traveling lane. We also showed the setback lines. It is a residential zone, and we just thought it might be helpful for the board to see the setback lines, the 40 feet from the front and 20 feet from the side, to just show you the usable space there. So the area that's shaded in gray is the area that we would like restricted in order for us to be able to put in our well. And that restriction is actually a form document that I did send along to the board, and effectively restricts that to effectively open space, which is what it is now.
Okay. I think the other action was to initiate the process to have an appraisal done
Yes.
on that piece. So I think we've put a request out to somebody to do that work for us, and we can give it to Mark if you want to. I think we just got this back this evening.
I understood that you're getting a proposal from
Right.
an appraiser that
So-
the town has used before.
Right. Well, one that was, we pointed in this direction. We're also going to run this by town council. He requested to see what the scope of the appraisal would be.
Sure.
So we're going to forward that on to Bob. I got a copy tomorrow.
I haven't seen it yet, so perhaps I can take a copy too, away with me.
I have it on here.
I'll forward it to you if you want it electronically, but here's the
Oh, thank you.
document.
Is that an extra copy?
Yeah, you can,
Oh,
I can
thank
put
you.
more. Mhm.
And I think the other piece we're going to do is we're going to loop Bill back in from planning board perspective. So I think the next time when we sit down and review all the information we collect, we'll be doing that in conjunction with the planning board as well.
Correct.
So I don't want us to make a decision, have them have a difference of opinion. We want to kind of try to make this as smooth as possible.
Well, the idea would be to try to get on the warrant upcoming. So we have been working on a proposed recommendation that you would effectively, as the selectmen would authorize this to be put on the warrant. And we have a proposed vote for you to take a look at as well.
I'd be happy to have electronics sent to Diane, so we'll review that language with town council as well. We have a placeholder on the warrant, so what we don't want to do is kind of sequence everything, so these things are moving in tandem as we move along.
Great.
So, Mark, any questions, comments?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Any other information you need from us at this time?
Nope.
When do you want to meet back again? Do you want them back in the 21st and see if planning board can meet then?
Yeah, I think the 21st should be, it's our next meeting. Want to wrap it up then. We'll be signing the warrant, closing and signing the warrant on the 28th, I believe. So we still have that window.
I wasn't sure about those dates, but if that's the dates, that's great. If we can be here the 21st.
And I think if we need to, if dates become any issue, I think we can schedule an off-cycle meeting.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, in my mind, the end date is the closing and the signing of the warrant.
Okay.
Right, so what we need to do between now and then, we'll get it done. So we won't let that slip.
Great.
If I could just ask a couple of questions of the applicant. Mark Allen, 2 Willowbrook Road in Mendon. I just want to ask that 100-foot offset from the well, that 100-foot radius, what that exactly represents?
Yeah, just for the benefit of anybody who hadn't been here before, as you may know, Mendon is short of water. So there are different types of wells that are put in for different types of uses. So a typical house well will meet house well standards, if you will. And there is always a protective radius for even wells like that. But a commercial well, one which is deemed to be what they call a public water supply, that is because we might be serving coffee or cleaning things with the water, it has to meet particular DEP standards. One of the things that they insist upon is that within a 100-foot radius of the well, that it be open space. They don't want structures or underground tanks or things that would potentially contaminate the well. So they ask for a 100-foot radius. It's very difficult to meet that in the developable properties, commercial developable properties in town. This property happens to be in proximity to the town land. If that were a private owner, we'd be kind of going through the same process.
And that represents the Zone 1 radii, if I assume correctly. The 100-foot...
Zone 1 transition radii, yeah.
Right, so in permitting similar sites, these public drinking water supplies have different radii associated with them. The Zone 1 is a radii that is a no-touch zone, as the applicant indicated. But associated with these public drinking water supplies are 2 other radii at a much larger distance, one of which is the Zone 2 radii, and then the third is the IWPA radii. That's the Interim Wellhead Protection Area radii. And having experience in permitting these similar sites in the past, the IWPA is the one that's the most restrictive. I don't know if the applicant has applied to DEP yet through the groundwater source application.
We're trying to get a lot of things done at the same time, so we're in the process of having DEP come out for a site visit at some point for
Yes.
suitability.
Susan Connors is the regional representative for DEP that handles all of the water source, public drinking water supplies for the region. And what she does is, as all DEP does, it's a 2-step process to approve these public drinking water supplies in excess of 25 people per day. The first step is to figure out, it's called the well site application. and that determines three things. One, what's the total flow of this anticipated well? Two, what the radii are going to be, the Zone 1, the Zone 2, and the IWPA. And then three, where that well is going to be situated based on the site constraints, i.e. this is a gas station, underground storage tanks, there's no town sewer, so the septic system. All of these items need to be taken into account before she can give you the approval for that well will be okay in that location. Just seeing the plan for today, I was at the planning board office this morning, and they hadn't had the well sited yet. It was still out in the town water. But doing calculations, it's been determined that the IWPA for anything under 1,000 gallons a day, which is roughly about 500 gallons a day that they're looking at as far as what they're estimating, your IWPA is a minimum of 400 feet. And that IWPA, and I have the documents here, just for those of you who don't have it, that IWPA, that 400-foot radii, cannot have underground storage tanks, it cannot have septic systems, it cannot have a lot that has more than 25% coverage by impervious surfaces. So all of these items kind of get tied into that first phase of the permit for the groundwater siting application. I just think that it's a little premature at this time because this Zone 1 they have is correct, and it looks like there's nothing in the Zone 1. But then when you add on those two other radii, that's going to push this well much further away and create the town, if you're...
It's going to infringe more, the larger easement.
Correct. The easement could go up to 10 to 11 acres.
Yeah, I don't know, who you represent or your motivation. We've talked with Susan, and she is going to, look more closely at the plan and come out and take a look. So clearly, we're not going to be putting something in that we can't. But we just have to get this thing off the ground, and it's kind of a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. We're going to have them take a look. She's going to take a site visit. But we really do need to demonstrate to them that we can come up with the 100-foot radius, which is a minimum.
Yeah, that's the minimum for the Zone 1, and I completely agree with the applicant. But again, there are two other radii that Susan will...
I know, I just don't, I'm not qualified to even get in that discussion. I'm just telling you, we are going through the process. So, if it turns out that Susan...
I just want to pull it back and just, probably, I think technically you're supposed to address all your comments to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm learning this parliamentary procedure thing. But I would probably say this, there are other zones that are going to be considered at some point, right? Zone 1 in your mind is the first step. Let's knock that off, move on. What I'm hearing is that there may be additional need to move into town land based on these other two zones. I would say this, let's push this over to Bill. I'm not saying we're going to stop with the appraisal, because I think the appraisal, to be honest, is going to be at your cost, is my understanding. So we can do all those things. We haven't approved anything yet, but I think these are good things from my standpoint to understand, because, to be honest, I wouldn't know, but I certainly hope the planning board is, that's why we want to do this in tandem with them, to make sure that all the considerations are pulled together.
Right, and I think through the chair, that, just when you look at that appraisal, just make sure that maybe there's a price per square foot, because that may be a sliding rule. In having designed these in the past and permitted these throughout the state, that is what's commonly done. As soon as you need an easement, whether it be from the abutter or from the town agency, they've always required that Phase 1 DEP well site permit is in hand, because that's a document that says DEP approves where that well can be. Right now, I know right now Susan wouldn't allow the underground storage tanks within 400 feet of a public drinking water supply.
Understood. I always hesitate to have somebody assume that what somebody else will do.
Sure.
I understand what you're saying.
But, and for the record, I'm a professional licensed engineer in the state of Massachusetts.
You know what would be helpful for me? If you could send actually Diane or the Mendon BOS email, just an outline from your perspective. I'd love to understand the normal order of operations on these things.
It's all here. It's in this light reading application. They're for your copies if you like them.
I'll take them.
Okay.
But
I've tabbed the areas where it indicates the offset to the IWPAs for specific underground storage tanks, septic systems, and the like.
And I think we talked to Susan quite a bit on other matters, so it's all good information. I'm not sure it's slowing us down in terms of what we decide to do in terms of next steps.
Appreciate that, thanks.
But I appreciate the information.
Sure. I just don't want to see the town agree to something that may, in the future, be a little bit more valuable. When you look at a 400-foot radius being pushed into the town's property more, that 800-foot diameter does calc out to about 11 and a half acres of land.
It's fine. And from my perspective, Diane, I want to make sure Bob understands the potential for further easements.
Yep.
And we don't block ourselves into a corner. But
Right.
in terms of what we decided, we're going to move forward in terms of the next steps, in terms of the appraisal. The meeting on the 21st, if dates are a problem, please communicate to Diane on, if the 21st seems to be a problem, we can probably get an off-schedule meeting if we need to.
Great, thank you.
And let's make sure we circle back with Bill and the planning board, and he's probably very familiar with those documents. But I think this is very helpful. so
And
I
just
appreciate it.
procedurally, Michael, for you, once that well site application is complete and permitted, and TEP says, yes, you can put the well there, there's a phase 2 where they actually drill the well and then figure out what the testing schedule is going to be. So being a gas station, it has a higher anticipatory rate of contamination, so DEP will say, okay, the well will come in at a certain yield, and based upon your site configuration, you may have to test for TCEs, PCBs, there's a litany of, public
It's
drinking.
not a small process, is
No.
what I'm hearing,
Public drinking water supplies, all right, it's a specialized field.
which is
In
why
engineering.
I understand your desire to kind of at least get the ball rolling. I'm not sure any of that is news to you. I'm sure you knew these things had to be done. What I want to make sure is that we are doing them in the right order, and we're not going to get, locked into anything that's going to come back to haunt us. So I appreciate your input.
Great, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you, Mr.
coming.
Chairman.
I know you have a meeting you want to,
Yeah, I appreciate that, thank you.
I'm sorry, one question in the audience.
I just have a question. The Board of Health, our engineer is currently reviewing the plan and the planning board wanted comments back from us.
Mhm.
We don't have a plan with the well in it. We have it with the public water supply, so I told my engineer to stop reviewing it, but he did have comments. Is there any way the Board of Health can get a new copy of what's actually being proposed?
I would say yes, it's possible. I'm not sure I can give it to you. Now, would the planning board have the new proposal?
All I have are the plans that the Board of Health has with the well and the radius drawn in. So that's about as much detail as I have, but I'm happy to give you the extra copies that I have tonight,
What-
or I can email them.
Missy, what I like to do, suggest, and I'm sorry, Diane, I'm going to do this to you. I want all communication through Diane on this issue, because it sounds like there's a lot of players involved, and I just want to make sure everybody has the most up-to-date, and to the extent they can be final plans. So everybody's looking at the same documents, and I would like the Board of Health to join us, Unless the planning board's going to speak, if you're reporting back to the planning board and Bill can represent all, I'm good with that.
Typically, we would just give a memo or something to the Board of Health that's something.
Okay. All right.
Because Michael, the Board of Health will be the conduit by which, after the well goes in, all of that testing, yearly testing goes through the Board of Health.
Okay.
So wise to have them on board.
So we'll probably still ask you to join. But if there are any other questions or comments on the Cumberland Farms easement? If not, then thank you both. We appreciate
Thank you.
all your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next few agenda items are going to probably be taken together. We're going to start, though, with the Taft, the bond for the Taft Library property as the first topic. Then we're going to move into the discussion on budgetary needs. So as we get to that, I'm sure more of you are going to join us. I think that'll also include a discussion on the clerk and the positions and the hours and things like that. So a lot of these things are going to get pulled together. So with that, I will hand it over to Linda.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen from Massachusetts. I wanted to get together with you because the next time we get together, I hope the bond will be a done deal. It's scheduled to be sold on October 21st, so, and there'll be some things that we need to sign that day, or the next time we get together. So, if you want, I have a couple of schedules that outline the repayment for the bond that we have. If you wanted to, I can just pass me one.
Thank you.
And although there's helpful information throughout, probably you'll be most interested in the last page, which is page 5, which outlines the total debt repayment for all of our loans, all of our bonds, rather, all right, including the new bond. And you'll see that this bond issue takes up a good portion of the drop that we're anticipating in fiscal year 17. Which, if you needed to see that drop, it's on page 4. You know, if you wanted to be able to see the numbers associated with that. So it's a 15-year bond. The payments at the beginning are relatively low.
I'm with you.
And then they even off and taper off.
So just as a reminder to folks, we've had a couple conversations on this. We had a couple different options we reviewed, and this is where we've settled. So I don't know if you can touch real quickly on the first two.
Yep, initially, we had a bond that was 12 years, that was scheduled for repayment over 12 years. That was fairly aggressive, and it took up, to step back, and the focus of all of the repayment schedules has been the drop that we will see in fiscal year 17 when the payments on the commercial portion of the Pheno land go away. The town will realize a significant decrease in their taxes that year if we weren't to put anything else in its place. The 12-year bond used up that entire drop, and it was a very aggressive repayment schedule. That was sort of like the plan number 1. Then we did think about another plan, which it was a more complicated plan within 15 years, and then we did stretch out, we did discuss a 20-year plan as well.
Yep.
The 20-year plan, would have cost us another couple $100,000, if I remember correctly, in interest. And the extra amount that we were spending just wasn't worth what we were giving ourselves in a repayment schedule. We finally decided upon the 15-year plan, which is a real, I think, a very reasonable repayment plan for this type of a project. It leaves a little bit of room out there in fiscal year 17 in case we need to fill it in with something else. Or if there's other plans, I know there's a lot of things on our wish list of things to have financed. So there's a little bit of room out there in fiscal year 17.
Okay, I'm good with it.
Okay.
Yep.
Because what the schedule is right now, assuming that our rating review goes well and everything, and that's scheduled for Wednesday at 10, I believe, that we actually just scheduled that at the end of last week. But it gets sold on October 21st with the big question mark being what will happen when they take a vote on the debt ceiling. That might throw a kink into things. The town does reserve the right to just pull the bond on the 21st of October if we want to, or cancel the sale. And then we would just wait another, week or 2 or 3 or whatever we think is prudent at that time, right? And by the way, this is Clark Rowell, financial advisor.
And I'm cautiously saying, yes, you're correct,
Okay.
because depending on what happens on that Monday, we may also not feel comfortable the rates are going to drop, even if they spike up on that Monday. I think I had the interesting experience of having a bond issue on June 20th when the Fed first said, even though I've been saying it all along, that it was going to start tightening up on interest rates.
Yep.
And interest rates spiked dramatically. We canceled the sale, and we did it partly because we thought the selectmen the following Monday might not approve the sale. And thus, when we went to the next sale, and this is what I think I'd suggest here, when we went to the next sale, we had a sense of if it came in under this rate, everything would be okay. the second page of the handout shows that I've assumed a 3.5% interest rate across the whole issue. And I think I'd be inclined that even if rates spike on that Monday as high as, say, to 3.75, I'm not sure I'd be comfortable to think they were going to come down again. And thus, I think if it's all right with you, we would, if we see something under 3.75, we will make the award, and you folks hopefully will say fine. The awkward part of a bond sale is, especially how it works now, and yes, bonds in Massachusetts is held by the Treasurer with the approval of the Selectmen, so presumably, not presumably, you folks do have prerogative to say, no, we don't like this. Unfortunately, what also happens now in the market is the Treasurer is expected to give a signed award certificate the day of the sale. And thus, I appreciate having the chance to just run over this tonight, because for all practical purposes, the only thing we don't know now is the interest rate. And if you're happy with this, and if the 3.75 or less, and frankly, I think my interest rates here are a little conservative, Linda I'll at least recommend to Linda that at, say, 2 o'clock, when we have this finalized on that Monday, she makes the written award, and then ask for your approval that evening.
What's the interest rate right now, if we're doing this today? Just curious.
I probably have this at least, probably a comfortably quarter point conservative now. So I always make it conservative. I get less conservative the sale approaches, but I don't like to get burned. And even that day of the sale, I'm probably going to tell Linda it's going to be something about, that I think it's actually going to be a little under that, and keep my fingers crossed. But I'm less concerned about my ability to understand generally how to do projections like this, and very concerned about all of our inability to realize if something crazy happens,
Yep.
and it has before, we could see a dramatic result on that Monday, and we may want to say, gee, cancel the sale, reject the bids or whatever before we get to you folks that evening.
That's fine. That makes sense. There's more out of our control than in our control right now, so.
It is, until that day.
Okay, and Rich, I'm just curious, have we baked this into sort of that projection you're putting together? Are we assuming this went ahead as is?
Sorry, which projection?
7-year, and you were also doing one that showed, we shared it with the multi-board in terms of our, we did one around debt, our debt projection, right?
That's the last page of,
Right, so you've seen this, you're using this is books and records for the time being, right?
I have all the same information.
Okay.
Clock is referencing this.
All right. What else on this topic? Is there anything you need us to do? This is very good information.
No, I just wanted to make sure that we were pretty much all on the same page, because the next time I come to you, it's kind of a done deal. And as much as technically, a person could say, no, we're not going to approve that, it's, I'm sure there's a way to get out of it. Well, I don't even know if you could. But, the sale is the 21st, and I'll be meeting with you on the 21st to sign papers.
So if something were really interesting, you'd probably reach out to us by phone and say, hey, this is not what
Right.
we expected.
Right, right, right. But otherwise, it's very, it's a straightforward issue. It's not, nothing really complicated about it.
And I say, just so you
That's all I
know,
say.
if you would like, and I'm sure you wouldn't, but you could have a posted selectmen's meeting for 12:15 that day, and then you'll see the bids right then and there and say yes or no.
We can consider that. Honestly, I'm not sure that'll be necessary, but it's an option we should think about. Only because I do think that the environment will be volatile. So I actually think, given the 17th, no one's quite sure what to expect.
No.
So, maybe we should consider that. But, Mark, I'm sorry, do you have any questions or comments?
I do not.
Okay. Great.
I'd just like to express my appreciation to the treasurer, who spent quite a bit of time trying to make sure that she came up with the best alternatives, both as, that would be beneficial to the town and also to the taxpayers.
Thank you.
I will second that and thank her for putting up with me on my questions. So,
problem.
that's good.
Not a problem.
Great.
Bring it on.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
we'll jump to property, use of Taft Orchard property and effect on tax exempt status. Linda, I think we're good with the library. This is a general question we've been bouncing around the last couple meetings. We thought that Clark might give us some perspective on it. So, for those of you that have seen the last couple meetings, we have situations where people are starting to look at use of town-owned land that is still, under bond, I guess is the term. And the question is, what are some of the things we can and cannot do potentially? Because we're going down the path of, we need select an authorization to, one, use it, and then two, if it's town-owned land, is there some benefit to the town that we should be receiving, whether that's a fee or something? And I think, Linda, you brought to our attention that, given the fact that it's under bond right now, we may not be able to do certain things, so we were hoping we'd get some insight onto that situation.
I don't think it's that you can't do certain things, but you can't make money off what is a tax exempt bond right now, or property that was financed with a tax exempt bond.
So if the thing I wanted to do was make money, that is something I cannot do.
No,
I'm kidding.
but it's not what you're doing, it's
Okay.
that you're doing. So, and I believe that the basic parameters are that you can't exceed 5% of the value of something, and the value of the thing is something that everyone agrees on. It can be the value of the bond, the value of the land. I don't know if you can use the outstanding value of the bond, but what its 5% value of is not defined in the law. So you can't exceed 5% of the value of some mutually agreeable standard.
The tax code does not want private parties to enjoy the benefit of tax-exempt financing. And so the 5%, believe it or not, in the trade is called the bad money piece. You can have somebody coming in, and maybe a very practical example is a school could renovate a wing, including a cafeteria, and then have a private operator come in and operate it. That runs into a private activity issue, and then you make this measure. And Linda's right, if 5% is something, it's often, not often, it is chosen to be relevant and fair, but also convenient. So if there's a small piece of property and it's only 1% of the total area of the property in question, we say, well, let's measure it in land area. In the case where I've seen property purchase and then lots cut off, that's a little tougher. Then it gets more of the issue of, well, how many dollars did they take in relative to the bond issue? If you have a violation of the tax code, you are required to remedy it. And the property, I think Linda and I have talked most about, that has the most potential of a problem, but also the best potential to be relatively easily resolved, is the commercial portion of the Fino property. If you recall, when that was purchased, we did the other two parcels as bonds and then kept that one parcel as notes and just continued to roll it as tax exempt notes, so that, for example, if a developer did come in suddenly and say, I want that property, you could then go into a permanent financing, do it on a taxable basis, probably pay down a portion of the notes and whatever the developer pays you, and have your permanent financing in place. We did do that for 5 years under the general laws. After the 5th year, you must permanently finance it. So that last piece was permanently financed a couple of years ago, and that actually shows up on
That was 2000.
page 5 is the 2009 issue. That's that October, the third column from the right, the 10/2609 is that bond issue. The good news there is it is fully retired in a couple of years, and thus, in terms of remedying any situation, it probably will not be that difficult to say, look, it's going to take some time even to get to the point where a private party can take advantage of this. And we can see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of when those bonds are paid off. And you can say, we're going to reserve the funds to pay off the bonds, the last payment of principal. You can also, you have options about using it towards other capital expenditures. There is wiggle room in the tax code. The really good thing about the discussion, with all due respect to boards of selectmen elsewhere in the Commonwealth, sometimes treasurers hear about this much too late and have a serious problem because they've issued tax exempt bonds, for example, and entered into a management contract that violates the tax code, and the bonds are starting to go taxable, and they have a real problem. In this case, I think we're glad to have this discussion, but I think we keep our fingers crossed that there will be ways to solve the problems that might be raised here.
And if I can add something to that, just while we're talking about money, because I think we can remedy the tax exempt problem or the tax exemption problem, but what isn't immediately evident is that in order to do that, any money that we get from any potential source will probably not be going, like, for instance, into the general fund, or will probably not be able to be used for just anything, which is where, when we're, running numbers, we could lease the property and get, take them, and then that becomes additional revenue for the town. Well, it may not,
Not
because
until the bonds are paid off.
we have to remedy the tax exemption problem with the income that we're getting from that endeavor, whatever it may be.
So let me ask a question then. So we have 2 RFPs out there?
Yes.
As 2 practical use cases, what's the practical implication of what I was just told in those 2 cases?
Well, for the 2 RFPs are one for the purchase and one for the lease of the land, right?
Yes.
Okay, but are both intended, are we thinking both maybe going towards the solar thing? No, okay. Well, then the practical implication would be if it were to be leased, that's all well and good, but all the lease payments shouldn't be counted on as additional revenue for the town. If it were to be sold, a little bit easier because you pay the bond off, you pay the, whatever the outstanding issue is, and whatever's left over, then the town can enjoy that.
And then the practical implication of the other 2 cases that are out there, one, the hang in the field, and the second being the request to use like an acre of the commercial property to grow pumpkins.
Yes.
Neither one of those probably even comes near this 5% that I'm hearing described.
Yeah, not from that,
So in those 2 cases, the tax exempt status and some of that stuff we've talked about in previous meetings really doesn't come into, it's going to be the
Don't
bigger
Yeah, it's,
sale or lease of the land
Right.
for its intended purposes.
right.
Okay.
And where it concerns the potential easement, I know Clark seemed to think that's an easier fix than, for instance, leasing or selling the commercial part of the property.
Why would that be an easier fix? Just give
I
it the 5%?
hope it is, simply because I thought it was a relatively small amount of the
Yeah.
actual
So it's that
parcel.
5% piece
You
again.
Stay
Yeah.
well under the 5%, yeah.
Even if it's under 5%, though, any proceeds or revenues from that would go towards payoff, or would that could be allocated somewhere else?
I think
I
that's where you'd have to be careful.
I
Yeah.
think I think now we're pushing the state law, that if you
I don't mean to
sell
push any law, I'm
property-
just asking a question.
Yeah. If property is sold that is bonded with, under Chapter 44, the proceeds are supposed to be kept to first pay off the bonds.
Okay. Linda's going to keep us honest, I have no doubt about that.
I'm sorry,
Linda will keep us honest. I have every faith. Mark, any questions, comments on that one? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in.
Go now.
Are you staying for the budget, or are you?
I'm staying for the budget.
Okay, you may remain seated then.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Clark.
we are going to, anyone who would like to join us to discuss budgetary needs in preparation for the special town meeting in November, please come on up. And I will ask Mr. Schofield to walk us through the documents he's prepared, and we will have a discussion. Chief, take the big chair, come on.
There you go. No chance.
It's when you kick us under the table.
Did you ask me something?
We should have printed some of these out.
I have got one copy I've got electronically. Have you seen this? Mr. Schofield, the floor is yours.
Okay. So what I've done, so that we can kind of figure out how you want to prioritize and go after what for the special town meeting is, obviously, the ask lists and the questions to collect all the information from all the departments and what they might have that they want to put on the ask list have been added, and then the question just becomes, how much do we have available, how much do we want to do now, how much do you want to wait, et cetera. So what I've basically did is, working with the town accountant, I first started to, she and I sat down, we figured out all of the increases that have to occur in all the salary and wages line items, which would be represent a transfer out of FinCom reserve for salary negotiations, right, to figure out what we had left there, if we had anything. We also, I also worked with the principal assessor to determine how much potentially recurring receipts we had in FY13 we would potentially occur again in FY14, and the same thing on new growth, based upon what she's estimating. So all three of those numbers we then risk adjusted because they're obviously not certain. It's an estimate of what might happen in the future. So we applied an 80% weighting factor to that to come up with an amount we could kind of count on as recurring revenue. All right. And then finally, we added into that the $53,308 of reduced assessment by the school based upon the last, the reduction of the minimum local contribution by the state at the 11th hour of the budgeting process. So risk adjusting those first three items and adding in the 53 leaves us with $177,750 worth of recurring revenue that we could comfortably assign to other recurring expenses. And the free cash, not estimate, what's been certified for free cash is $67,860, so you have that available for one-time expenses. So in the workbook that I created, I've got a page that lists all the things we've collected so far that need to be potentially put on a warrant, and then thought what we could do is just skip through, apply a priority to them all, and then my last sheet then filters out all the non-priority ones into two categories, one-time and recurring, and then does a match between that and the amounts that we just talked about to make sure that we either do have enough or don't have enough to cover.
So the tab labeled expenses are all the asks, right?
Those are all the asks, right? And obviously, some of them, while we're calling them asks, are mandatory, right? Like, obviously, we have our snow and ice deficit we've got to cover, and we have a number of bills of a prior year that I worked with Diane to collect and document here, too. So there's a few things that we kind of got to do, but there's obviously plenty of
There's some
really nice to do.
investments here.
I'm sorry?
There's some investments in here as well.
Absolutely, yeah, plenty of that, yep.
Okay. I will defer to you on how you would like to approach this. I think the revenue tab, pretty straightforward. I think you just walked us through that.
Yeah, there's not much debate there. The only thing I guess we could debate is whether or not folks would agree that an 80% risk adjustment to the numbers is warranted. But I'll tell you, I worked with both Jean and Claudia, and we all feel pretty comfortable that's the right way to go.
I agree. I think that makes sense, because we can monitor it and see how we're tracking,
Yeah, and if it turns out we
throughout the year.
can spend that other 20% because it comes in, then we can do it.
Yep. Any other thoughts on the risk adjustment? So this is silence equals agreement, so if I hear no words, we're all touching the stone and we all agree. All right. So expenses, the expenses tab or the request for funding, do we want to go, how do you want to handle this one, Rich?
Well, so what I'd like to, I tried to, well, I didn't try, but I worked with Lonnie to see if I could get some input from him before he went away. We were unable to,
That's the asks.
we were unable to meet, to collect his input. But I was hoping at least if we could take a swag through here and get a consensus on whether these items are priority 1, 2, or 3. And then I can, in an immediate feedback way, I can tell you that based upon whatever we throw into priority 1, what we look like compared to the revenues we have.
Okay.
I would say the only other thing I can think of, though, is two things I suppose we'd want to decide before analyzing where we're at when we make the choices is, I know we've got, so like I said, we've got 177,000 to play with the recurring revenue, and we've got 67,000, we'll call it 68,000 of one-time money, but that doesn't mean we want to unload that all in this first STM, because we know we'll have 2 more, number one. And number two, it's been kind of an approach of ours to also put some amount into either CapEx or stabilization as a way to force those balances up, so we may want to, earmark some amount. So I don't know if maybe before we get into prioritizing the expenses, we might want to kind of decide on what we feel comfortable out of both of those buckets, spending at this STM, and then doing the prioritization, because then we can analyze where we are, given what we agreed.
Well, from my perspective, the exercise is not to spend all the money. It's to spend the money we need to spend, right? So I'd actually kind of like to look at the request and figure out what's a must-have, within the time frame we're talking about, right? Because that's the other thing, is we're looking towards a November appropriation, and do all these things, do they need to happen immediately, or are these things that we can work into? Are these things better situated towards baking it into the more formal budget process in the spring appropriation?
Yep.
So I'd like to, as opposed to worrying about how much money I want to save, I want to understand what the needs are first.
Okay, so then basically, I think what you're suggesting then is to flip through the list and kind of only assign a priority 1 things that we really think are gotta do in November. That's what it sounds like he is saying.
And it was much more succinct the way Rich said it, too. That was good.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure I understood what you're
What
saying.
I'm trying to do is get somebody to say something, because you and I are having a conversation here, and, this is, people fall asleep on us, so. Why don't you lead us through, top to bottom?
Okay, I'm actually going to skip the first one, because I probably shouldn't have it on there, because that's an error that I made that I'm going to get from my own line item. So I'm going to the Finance Committee report, so I'm just transferring from my salary wage line item to that. So I'm going to make that a 3 for the purposes of this discussion,
Okay.
okay?
So
All right.
So you don't want that on the warrant?
No, yeah, I want it on the warrant, but but the source is going to be
Gotcha.
another FinCom
Just going to
item.
move money.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not taking it from the revenues or the free cash one-time
Going
funding.
to take it from, wages, yeah. So just like we did last year, and we discovered it only after we set the budget, so
Right.
we ended up 2 years in a row doing the same thing.
So should that be a priority 3 or a priority 1, but just happens to be from a different line item?
Well, that's true, but for the purpose of this analysis, anything we put in a priority 1 is going to come out of one of those 2 buckets we just talked about. So for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to make it a priority 3.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, snow and ice deficit, that's easy, that's a 1, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I
new
agree.
New website. So I'm told that's $300 one time, and it's going to actually save us money, so.
1.
Mr. Reel, okay, all right, so this is an interesting one, the interconnection application fee for solar RFP. So it seems to me like we can't even move forward from where we are unless we do that, right?
Well, we can. I think this is intended to increase the number of people that might be interested in doing it. This is sort of locking up our position with the state. I'll say that's a 1.
I would agree.
Okay. E-permitting, I don't have a number for it, so I don't know what you,
Okay, so those documents were forwarded to somebody. We'll resend them. That's about $7,000.
is that what it is?
I want to say.
Okay, so what's your prioritization on that?
I would say since we were in with CMRPC, that probably should be a 1. I want to make it a 2 right now, because I'm getting some folks that are weighing in whether or not we really can run with it right now. So
Okay. Mr. Reel's nodding his head, so, okay.
I'll make it a 2. With
Bridge
but
repair,
I
I'm gonna
always, I hold the right to change my mind.
As always. Bridge repair, I'm going to make that one easy for you and make it a 3, because I cannot repeat the whole, because I don't remember the detail Alan explained to me, but he decided that he can do pieces of it this year from what he's got in budget and only wants to tackle it next year.
Okay.
So I made it a 3. Okay? Town hall air conditioning. Now, the only person I hear this one from is Mr. Tenio. I haven't heard this come from anywhere else, but,
Well, we just bought,
We got a whole bunch of AC units. I mean, I understand the need for central, I guess it's more of a central air type of
correct,
deal.
that's exactly what it would be.
But we also just expended some green funds for new window. So I think this is not a 1.
Yeah. Oh, those right there, that's what those are right there? Oh, no kidding. I
That
didn't-
doesn't take care of the basement either, so there's still an issue with the basement air.
Yeah. I would presume that electric service-wise, it's probably costing us a lot more money to run those, I think. I don't know what the savings are, the ROI is, but. Okay, so what's that, a 2, 3? What is it?
I'll leave it at 2.
yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
All right, so that brings us to, so the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are all, 7 are all bills of a prior year. That's what that
Gotta
little
do it.
funky acronym means.
Is that what that,
Bill of a prior year, yeah. Bill of a prior,
OLP1.
you can put that 8 in there.
yeah, bill of a prior.
So those are all 1s, right?
Those are, yeah, I would think they'd have to be, right? We got to pay them, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the next one is a small deficit we have for dispatch salaries. I don't know if maybe, not that I mean, it's only 289, but I'm sure Sergeant Kersey could explain what that's about.
That was just a difference in the grant that we went over. It was a 289 that we ended up, we thought we were getting 289 more from the grant, and we didn't,
1.
so.
So
So it seems pretty straightforward, yeah. Okay, so we leave that 1? Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so update phone system. This is an interesting one. So we did update the phone system over at the fire station.
Right.
The rest of the system certainly does need to be updated at some stage, and I think that's the World Bank quote, right? The 24,975?
I don't know, I didn't, you said you had it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
And I'm also waiting on another one from another company, too.
What do we get for this?
Say again?
What are we going to get for this?
I don't know. I was asked to put it on you.
As a 2 or as a 1? Or just as an
You're asking me
asking?
my view?
No, I'm just in know, who did, this is a part 2 of something that started, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So
Now,
I'm
when
wondering about
we
the-
did it at the fire station, that was
Right.
desperately needed, right? Because they couldn't take,
Right.
they didn't have an answering system to take, messages for permits and all that, I mean, burning permits and stuff, but
Right. Lonnie asked for this to be on?
Yep.
All right, so we just, I'll get details from him. We'll leave it at 2 for now.
Okay, fine.
For me, it's more about what's the functional benefit, right? So are there things we potentially can do that we can't do now in terms of coverage, call routing, things like that, that's going to prove to be a benefit when we think about municipal clerks, coverage, the fact that we got offices everywhere. But I'll talk to Lonnie about that, but we can leave it as a 2 for now.
The estimate that I was getting also included adding the ability to have more phone lines. There's one phone in the treasurer collector's office that can't pick up the other lines. The system is antiquated, you can't add any more phones to it.
Yeah, actually, we had a question as to why we needed, we're sort of net neutral in terms of people and phones, and why would we need a new extension? You know what I mean?
Well, there's an existing phone, but it's not hooked up to the rest of the phone.
Okay, so it has never been hooked up. It's too bad.
Just to make a general comment while we're on this is the CapEx committee, technically speaking, is meant to deal with expenses that are $25,000 and over. So the items that you have on here, they seem like a duplicate of what should be on there, and that's true, but we took the high priority ones, or the ones that were felt to be high priority, that were under 25,000 from that list to put on here. That's why you see some overlap.
Given the proximity to 25,000, maybe this needs to get back to the CapEx item.
Well, and then based on, I don't know what that second estimate's going to come in as.
For this discussion, it's a 2. But I am curious as to what potential efficiencies we do not get by not doing it. So maybe you can pass that along to Lonnie, and he can kind of write something up for us.
Okay, so that brings us to the new fire truck accessories, which I don't know that that's the, is, I'm sorry?
Phone system still
Yeah,
at
he
2.
said, he had that at 2, I think he said, yeah. I don't know, there was an update from
Mike Zarella.
Mike Zarella on it. I don't know if I've got the exact right number there, now that I'm thinking of it as I'm looking at it, I don't know if the number's exactly right, but it's somewhere close to that, somewhere
Okay.
around there.
So this is to outfit the new truck that was purchased with the bond, right?
Closing, different equipment that it needs to be fully operational.
Is it partially operational now?
It is partially operational, yes.
Okay.
I mean, we could, I don't object if you leave it at a 2 for now, if you feel you need to.
Okay.
But we do need to deal with it at some point.
Yeah, and I think twos are probably gonna be those things we probably wanna roll into our next fiscal year budget planning and see what we can do there.
Or maybe even as we get towards the end of the year and we know what
Right.
else we got.
So that's, I mean, move it from a 3 to a 2, to your point.
That's what I
So-
did, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably a pretty good way of looking at it, right? A 1, this STM, a 2, maybe some STM before the end of the year, and a 3
Right.
is next ATM or later, something like
Yep.
that.
Okay. Makes sense.
Make it a 2.
Make it a 2.
So the oil containment, I put $200 down there because Alan says that he thinks that's all it's going to take him to do that.
So
Okay.
So
The-
that,
the-
that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no.
That's also needed at the police station, correct? It's the same,
I don't,
no?
you mean the new police station?
No, the current.
Down in the Sulla, well, I mean, there's a lot of code issues in the Sulla there.
And that was one of the things that
Yeah,
Maya,
Maya hit us on that,
Right.
the electrical, the PVC piping, and no barrier for the oil.
so if
containment.
it's only $200, is that worth doing now?
I doubt very much the Sulla one's gonna be that cheap. It's gonna be a different animal.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's the same. So, I don't know, I mean, it's one of those things where, because it's such a low dollar figure, whether you make it something less than, make it a 1 or a 2, but.
I'm okay with the 1. I mean, I'd rather get some of these things taken care of.
Okay.
Knock them out.
I think the TC search agency's easy, right?
Yeah, it's a 3.
That's a 3?
No, it's a 1.
Okay. Concom clerk training, if you remember last meeting, we identified that there, up to a 30-hour overlap was going to be necessary to train her. So if
For
there's
additional hours to get the training done?
yeah, if it's 30 hours, it would be $550. Yeah,
1.
yeah. And thank you, Diane, for correcting me.
But
I had an extra 0.
There was another, something else that I added to the draft warrant, was training that the Mass Association of Conservation Commissions does. Would they also provide a certification? You take 7 or 8 classes, and you'll get certified, and that's how I learned a lot of the ins and outs and the DEP requirements, so I put that on there for you to review to see if you'd want to consider also including that for the Concom clerk. So it'll be more than 500, I'm trying to find.
Is that a training that is better done when they start, or better done once they start to understand the job and the role? It might be done further down the line.
It's set times and days. They don't offer, it's not like an ongoing class. It's something that's, I think they do 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring.
So what you're saying is it could be done in the spring?
I think the more you can learn,
So Diane, let
the
me,
better.
if I could just make sure I
Yeah.
understand, are you saying that if they took the earlier course, there'd need to be a longer overlap period? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
No, just in addition.
So what is it that costs us extra? The
That's
cost to
what
go
I'm
to
trying
the?
to find.
Well, is it a cost of the course itself?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's, I estimated, wait a minute, $225.
To pay for the course?
Training and mileage for the courses, for
Okay. All
1 year.
right, so I should make that $775 then?
It's up to you if you want to do it.
I think it's a good
it's
idea.
worthwhile.
Okay.
We're going with that silence equals agreement thing.
I never cease to be amazed at the places where new expenses pop up.
Well, it's not, training was always part of Concom's budget, and 2009, 2010, we were told to take that money out of our training
Right.
and zero it out. So I had taken several courses, so it's not new, it's just, hopefully we'll be able to.
It's a question of when, though, right? So what if we have another oil containment thing that's $200, I might go with the oil containment over the training for the Concom, to be honest. But we don't. I'm just saying that's a theoretical. We'll leave it as is for now.
Okay, so the next one, unemployment insurance, and Mrs. Hawks had us put this on there. I think the concern is, we did get surprised, right, by by someone that we had to finish up with, and we believe that there's no more liability risk with that, to pay any more for that person. But it's just a more of a just in case. I think my own personal feeling would be, since we don't have a specific identified issue, to not do it, given everything else we have to, but then maybe put it at 2 in case and later on in the.
I'm okay with
year
2.
We run into it.
Right, because, I mean, this is one of those things where they pop up out of the blue potentially. So there's the potential.
Which is why we have FinCom reserve, right?
Right. I mean, I was okay with 3. If you want to make it a 2, I'm okay with revisiting.
Okay. I'll leave it at 2 for now. Yep, 2. Okay, so the next one, the OPEB. So for everyone's edification, I'm going to do my best to explain this, and I've been warned thoroughly by the town accountant that I better do a good job proselytizing for this item.
Well, I would suggest if, somebody could have been, she could have voiced her concern.
That's true, yeah, okay. Now she's going to kill me.
No, she's going to call me.
OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits, right? So as time goes by and we employ more people and people live longer and the cost of healthcare insurance inflates, the risk to the town for paying those benefits after retirement increases more and more and more. So good financial management practice that's being adopted by more and more municipalities is to have an account that funds that, to de-risk us from that liability, which I think makes sense. The question is just when do you start funding it? So, and I think I tend to agree with the group. I think everybody was in agreement pretty much, right, Linda? I mean, yourself, Jean, Claudia, and Clark, that we probably want to start putting at least something into such an account, so that we start to develop a discipline. Because the key thing there is that as that liability balloons, we'll be less and less able as the years go by to be able to meet that obligation. So we better manage expenses or revenues now to be able to help fund that later. That's the idea.
I guess I'm not against, I'm just questioning the 1. Because as I look at this, it feels like this is something we've got to plan carefully for within our normal appropriation cycle.
Mhm.
So is there a benefit to doing it in November versus making sure it's one of those items that we know we're going to have? 2 things. 1, that we're going to bake into the next fiscal year budget and make it a reoccurring annual thing that people aren't questioning it. And then 25,000 in terms of just a figure. Where did that come up from? And it feels a little bit like CapEx, like we should be funding CapEx.
Yep.
From a long-term strategic viewpoint. So it is something we should do. I'm questioning the 1 versus maybe a 2.
Yeah.
And the 25,000 as to where that figure came from.
My guess is that the town accountant and probably the even Standard & Poor's, we talked to them on Wednesday, would be very happy if they knew that we were committed to beginning that on the annual planning cycle.
Mike,
Yes.
if I may, there's a formula that is used to calculate what your liability is right now, and as of 2012, our liability for post-employment benefits was $5 million, rounded, it's 4.9 something or other, so $5 million, and we have what is called an ARC, something.
Annual recurring contribution. I think
Yeah,
is what
something
it
about
was.
our regular contribution,
Mm-hmm.
our annual contribution that we're supposed to be making, which is $400,000. That is what has been advertised, or has been calculated for the town of Mendon, because there's also state law that's pushing some of this. Not that it's required, but they're definitely getting that way, because there's too many companies that aren't providing for their retirees. So the number of $25,000 was just something to get us going, something to say we're doing something, because technically our annual contribution should be closer to $400,000.
What's our annual contribution now?
0. So the 25,000 was, unless you count, I mean,
So this
right
is
now, we are
completely
contributing,
un-
we're paying as we go, we're paying as we
Right.
need it right now.
Okay.
But we have zero being set aside to provide for that eventuality of all the other retirees.
Yeah, so maybe to make, I'm going to probably oversimplify it a little too much, but just to make it, so the 5 million that Linda mentioned, that's an estimate of, at the current level or the number of employees
Yep.
that would likely retire, and given the likely age they'd live to, and the likely
It's the actuarial
increase
stuff,
in
right?
costs would be, the total amount you'd have to pay to manage all the post-employment benefits for that entire group, assuming nobody else comes on, would be about 5 million. That's what that 5 million number means.
Okay. All right, still feels like a win. Not concerned with the dollar amount so much.
It's a smart thing to do, whether or not
No,
we
no,
do it. or-
managing
but
long-term
just-
financial risk,
Yep.
got it.
Right.
What I'm
right.
suggesting is that something, but I'm questioning the timing, and, I'm questioning November. I'm like, is this a must-have in 2 months, or is this something that, is it a best practice we start implementing next fiscal planning cycle?
So based upon what we just agreed for the prioritization definitions, we'd make it a 3, because we deal with it at the annual budget cycle, if I understand what you're suggesting.
That's sort of where I'm going. I'll defer, anyone has an opinion, please speak up. I might make it a 2, only because,
Okay?
depending on the outcome of Wednesday's meeting, perhaps you may want to go on the fly on Wednesday, say, you know what, we are going to implement that in our spring, special town meeting,
Well,
type of thing. I don't know. I'm just giving you some flexibility.
2 it
I
is
think
then.
what was identified was that it's a good thing for the town of Mendon to be thinking that far forward. That reflects very well on us.
Yeah, no.
So if we can, we can, and if you can't, is anything going to happen? No, because we still are going to pay for everybody as they go.
To me, it's, if we could fund everything,
Smart thing to do.
we have, well, how many million in CapEx requests right now, based on the list you guys put
3.
together?
Right.
Right? So we've got a lot of needs, what I like to say is we got a lot of investment opportunities. This is one. It makes sense from a fiscal management perspective, absolutely. I'm just deferring on November, so I'll leave it.
So just to close this one up, so I'll make it a 2 for now, and I think, did Mark want to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I'd agree, it'd be nice if we could have it as a 1, but I think we could push it a little more. So 2 is fine with me.
So again, the key thing is that we have a story.
Yeah.
And when I say a story, I don't mean something we make up, but I mean that we have,
No.
an explanation as to what our plan is, that
Yeah.
no plan is not good, we can't have that, and we have to have a plan. So it sounds like at least we would have one, given what you're saying. And we'll also, just so you're aware, I think we're gonna need to, and we started that, Claudia's gonna write it up, we'll add it to the financial management policies document, make a revision, because we need it in there.
Okay.
All right, so next one's tax title foreclosure, I'll let you comment, Linda?
That tax title has been not let go, but it certainly hasn't been paid the attention to that it deserves over the past couple of years. And I'm resuming my efforts with tax title. And right now, I've got $5,000 in that line item. I've spent a little bit of it. But advertising alone for all the properties that we have that we're going to have to advertise for tax title is going to chew up a good portion, if not all, of the rest of that 5,000. So I'm just trying to
This is additional
anticipate.
funding against the line
Yep,
item
this
as
is
it stands.
additional. I am trying to anticipate needing a little bit more. I do understand that when you have to put a number next to it, whether it's a 1 or a 2 or 3, I think it's a 1, but every department head thinks their stuff is a number 1, so.
I would lean towards a 2 on this one,
Yeah.
honestly, because I think it's going to be based on run rate. As you start
Yep.
to execute,
Yep,
you're going to be limited to what you can get done, but we should be starting, we should be executing,
yep.
and we should be able to evaluate in the latter half of the fiscal year as to, do we want to invest more into that process?
Yep, and just so I can just get a plug in, a few years ago, tax title was $12,000. The line item was worth $12,000.
You know
So
plugs
just-
don't work with me, right?
Huh? I'm just saying,
like-
I'm just saying.
So from a FinCom perspective, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, guys, obviously, right? But my feedback back to Linda is that I would be very surprised if us as a committee would not want to see some ROI starting to happen with the 5,000 before we dump more money in it, because the only reason to put money in tax title is to have an ROI in collections.
While I was there asking for everything else, I get in there.
Get it. You don't get what you don't ask for, right?
That's right.
Hey,
Yeah, and that's the same story with the next two that we're going, so you might as well.
so anything that's people-related, let's kind of group those together. So I see a Board of Health
Next
clerk,
line, too.
right?
I think, okay, so you want to, well, do you want to, okay, then let's get them all done now. We'll skip
Yeah.
around a little bit and then
Yeah, because I think
see
we've
if I
got,
can keep track of that. Okay, so let's start with then the additional hours for Board of Health clerk. So I had a dialogue with Missy today about whether or not it was going to be 35 or 37 hours in her, for the Board of Health, once the 5 hours are taken away to go to the Water Board. So if you remember, right now, it's a total of 40, so if we weren't going to do a net increase in hours and expense, then that means that she'd go down to 35 and the water clerk would take the 5, right? So I think she suggested, and maybe you want to comment on why you'd need the extra 2.5 hours, because that's what we're talking about here. Right, and we began that discussion, I believe, Mike, you'd asked for some information relative to this. Yeah.
right. So, just to clarify, we're looking to separate water from Board of Health, essentially. Administrative support, and the summary here, you're suggesting on average is about 5 hours a week?
Yeah,
The water.
It all depends on, it gives and takes, it depends on what's going on. It can be very fluid. Sometimes you use 10 to 15, it all
Yep.
depends on what's going on in the office at that.
And primarily, this 5 hours a week is based on the billing and questions around the billing.
Right.
So inbound communication via phone, so we had a good phone system. We might be able to spread load some of that, no, I won't, I'll get off my soapbox.
And that's true, because, and that water commission phone is not on our system, so that would be another use for that new phone system, is to have
Okay.
it all tied in and be able to leave messages.
Right.
Nice if you could reduce some of the phone lines coming into the building.
Yeah,
Have
that will be
more
definitely,
extensions.
yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Yeah, I mean,
Because a lot of the phone numbers are terminated directly into a phone and not available
Yeah,
for use across the group.
and they can sit there idle for, 80% of the day. If you had less numbers, but then centralized, I think Diane could be like the operator.
Why not?
She needs another
She's
job.
gonna come across right now. So, the net then is, we've got 5 hours potentially being needed by water, that's over here, right? But the
Yeah,
Board of
and that's
Health-
not on here
right.
because that's existing today.
Okay, so you have a water clerk and Board of Health clerk lower down too, 4 from the bottom, right? So is that the same line item?
Wait a minute, why did I put that there?
That one's for 47.
Yeah, that has a,
Times, why did I do that? Oh, you're right, that's a double count.
okay, good.
Yeah, that's a double count.
All right, so that's a reduction then. So,
Yep.
for Board of Health, what we're saying is it's 40 hours today, we're saying 5 goes to water, but you need an increase in what the Board of Health
Yeah,
needs.
I would like to return back to what I originally had, which was 37.5, before I took on the billing.
And the billing was originally 2.5 hours worth of work, so the billing has increased.
As, it's not that the number of bills that have gone out.
Yep.
It's what how the water department, the water commissioners themselves have redone their regulations and require more notices and things like that to go out. And that's really just, that's.
So it was 2.5, but the water portion has increased to an additional 2.5. So what we're saying, what I'm hearing is the water support has gone from 2.5 to 5 hours, and that Board of Health is still 37.5.
Oh, okay, so forgive me, but I think that's different to what I heard the last meeting. What I understood the case to be is that it was 35, the position, the Board of Health was 35, they added 2.5, it wasn't enough, they went up to another 2.5 to make it a total of 5.
So in the end, we've got 2.5 hours worth of administrative support we've got to identify potentially, right? That's where we're over. We really got 42.5 hours worth of work, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's
Right,
what.
that's
what he's
the
saying,
summary
yes.
we've gotten.
Yeah.
So we just need to clarify with the parties at hand as to what that allocation is. Because there was the ask to say, what was it originally versus what it is now? I think you've done a nice job outlining what it is now. It's 5 and 37.5. So we got to circle back on that. But where we are now is we should have 40 hours covered, correct? And we just got an ask for 2.5 hour increase.
That's right.
Somewhere. I'm not going to say which department, because both departments are going to say it's not me. But we know it's 2.5 hours. Fair? Okay. And we have,
Okay, we have to put a number on that, right? So,
you mean a dollar amount?
no, I got a dollar amount, right? It's just under $2,400, but I'm asking, you weren't moving on from that, were you moving on from that?
No, because I also want to talk about the additional administrative support we need.
Oh, you want to prioritize after we're done talking about them all?
Well, a little bit. I think what I hear is there's a general need for administrative support within the municipality, right? You have a need. Board, either water or health has a need of an additional ask of 2.5 hours. And we've got a cost associated with and I call it the municipal clerk supporting public safety, just so you know.
I just
I'm being
changed it.
consistent with my titling, chief.
Sure. 30,000 is the number that you have there. Does that include the family plan, or are you saying that?
Yeah, that's half a year, right? Because inside this year, if it was a whole year, you're closer to 56, 57,000 with the family plan and the salary, yeah.
I have one of the dispatchers that is interested in doing the job part-time. I think I could probably get by with the 30,000, probably for the whole year, with no additional health insurance, because she already has it. Right now, and I think there'd be a savings, because if I have her on the day shift, when that day shift dispatcher takes the day off, I don't have to replace it overtime or replace it with a call. So I think it could be a wash. That'd be my gut feeling. Dave, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, after the next 2 months, we will be able to do it. These first 2 months, we won't be able to.
Yeah, we have somebody going out right now, a dispatcher that's gonna go out for extended period of time for an operation, but I think actually I could probably make the whole year with 30,000 instead of, and go 24 hours a week, and then, you know, next year or the year after, we could see if there's that ability to get up there. But I've got to get to 24 hours.
Yeah.
I've got stuff that's not getting done.
That's
Missing deadlines.
Two things,
That's
too.
what I'm
Between
confused
two
by, yeah.
departments, police
Right,
and fire.
right. And one thing I was going to ask you to do tonight was outline sort of the, 'cause we've talked about it, right? And you've got things that, you know what, it'll be sort of like working in our office. Diane has a certain level of access to things
Yeah.
that Diane has that other clerks don't. And you're not a clerk, don't take that wrong, but clerks wouldn't have, right? You're an administrative assistant, you're up here, all right? Take no offense by my words. The question I would have, things like, are there functions that don't require that we could look to, like invoice processing, things like that we might be able to look to spread load? So we've got, 9 hours in town clerk's office, right? So if we look to kind of marginally increase or leverage some of these hours in other places, we might be able to further help you. If you get the 24 for
Yeah,
the critical needs.
Yeah, there's definitely some things that a municipal clerk could do, and then there's other things that it's more of an administrative
Right.
assistant dealing with confidential issues.
You could I think I'm a 1, honestly, on the 24. I think that's a great solution, but if you can also kind of sort of to do that functional split of things you think might be able to be shared and give you further support by other folks within the clerk pool. Does that make sense?
Does it have to be
No.
exactly equal on both sides, or? Okay, yeah, no, I
This is-
gotcha.
Just break it
Yeah.
down functionally.
Yeah, what could I
The
offer?
advantage
You know,
would
the
be
problem is,
lower, right, and then do
which is
all
always a
30,000.
problem, is our payroll is,
From the insurance.
without a doubt, Claudia will tell you, well, actually,
Yeah, but not only that, but it's not a
Linda will
full-time
tell you, it's the most complicated payroll in the town. So when we think about sending it out to somebody else, they really got to have access to the log, the schedule, and everything else, so it's not that easy.
Even invoice processing?
Oh, no, that stuff would be easy.
Yeah.
But the payroll's kind of one of the bigger
No.
things.
No.
But I'll break it down, but I would be, I can live with 24 hours.
Okay, so Chief, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
was going to say
Matt.
one comment and one question. The comment is, I like the chief's idea of if the individual who is interested in the position is a dispatcher already. you
Dual
don't-
trained.
Is dual trained,
Yeah.
and he can utilize that individual if somebody's out, even
Yeah.
if they're, doing administrative duties, so they're going to be doing.
Push 'em right
dual-
over there.
dual Service.
So you figure every time that person
So I like
takes
that idea.
2 or 3 weeks of vacation, sick time, and holidays every year,
Preaching to the choir on this
I would be
one.
able to move.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, I'd like to go in that direction. I did discuss it with her the other day, and she said she was interested.
Well, I think the previous assistant clerk, she did something similar, didn't she?
Yes,
full-time.
Right, okay.
It really is the only way to go. We don't want to hire someone that's only a clerk because, well, I shouldn't say only a clerk, only an administrative assistant.
Why do we all keep looking at Diane?
Okay, so how much we need?
We're looking for her approval.
Well,
Let's be honest.
My question
Not
is
that
that
much.
she said that you could do that within $30,000 for the year. We're gonna be at the halfway mark. Does that mean that you only need 15,000 for this year?
Yeah, I think
I think it's a prorated, a
So what's the
24-hour.
30,000 come down to? We need less than
the
30,000.
only concern is the next 2 months because it just got hit with a dispatcher that has to go out. But otherwise, yes.
Could you survive for the next couple of months? I know it's an urgent need, but
We're trying to look at it right now. I just, in the last 2 weeks, was notified that he's going out for 2 months
So
of
that-
surgery.
Just a question.
how would you fill that gap, I guess, if your plan was to work?
Oh, with this plan, I would, if I had the money now for the clerk, she would have to move into that slot.
Okay, so.
And she'd have to try to do the job, both jobs there at least some of the week, which of
Alright.
course is difficult because you can do it once in a while, but if you're doing it every single day, it gets ahead of you.
But it would be, there would be some level of benefit to you because no one's doing it, well, no offense, I know different people are doing it
Police
now,
officers are doing
right?
it, so they're not on the road.
Dave's doing it.
Well, Dave's doing some of it, the lieutenant's done a great deal of it.
So,
To that point, what would the number be then for the rest of the year?
Real quick, Rich and I were talking quick about this. One option would be to reinstate that dispatcher position we lost, so then you can put her on days, and then we have a dispatcher that we can put back into rotation. So now instead of just getting a full-time clerk back, you have a dual-purpose person, a dispatcher and a clerk on days. Because we lost Sherry Mason's position. It's almost if we got that back, we could get the clerk's position back without actually adding more. We'd just be at the dispatchers we used to have.
I would say this.
But you would go to a higher number, though.
I would ask,
This third
Sure.
would turn to 25. because
can I just
it's
jump
only
in for a
half year.
second? I
Yeah,
think
so-
it's a
so-
1.
Your most expensive
I'll just stop
dispatcher. Your most expensive dispatch is 47,000 for the whole year, right? So if you needed one for half a year, right, you're talking about just like $24,000. So the 30,000 could come down to 24,000 and you could get the person.
Yeah, but then you're gonna hire a new person, and you're gonna incur liability for health insurance. So that would be my concern there.
Okay, but
I mean, I
even, so if you,
appreciate what
so if you
what
went
you're saying.
so if you went part-time, then it's even less than 24,000 then.
But then you run into the problem of reliability.
So, can I ask?
Just tell me what number I can reduce the
Right.
30,000 to based
Can-
upon the plan you're talking about.
Sounds like there's a couple options out there, right? You've talked about one, the chief has one in mind. Do we agree that this part-time solution, regardless of how we do it, is that a 1?
Oh, yeah, to me.
I would like to say it's a 1. I think it's a 1.
Yeah, because I think it's silly to have
Right.
Lieutenant Blanchett and Sergeant Kersey
Agreed.
doing clerk work.
Mark, you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay, so,
Can you give me a day or two to?
yeah, what I'm saying is, we're gonna revisit and sign either the 21st or the 28th, in terms of the warrant, right? So, and you probably, the FinCom's gonna get together on this and review all this stuff again anyway, right? So I think we do have a little bit of a window there.
Yeah, I'll work on that, I'll work on the.
Yeah, and this is.
But I don't want to take on another employee if I don't have to, because.
No.
But Mike, the idea here, right, was to just figure out what kind of headroom we have, right? So we don't have to nail it down to the
Yes, we want to
exact,
spitball it now.
but we can spitball that it's at least going to be a little bit less than the 30,000, right? So
Yeah, I think I'd be comfortable saying 25 anyway.
okay, so let's do that for now, and if you come back with a more tweaked
And-
number, we'll change it.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to go, I really have to sit down and go over the schedule and meet with Dave and also this employee to make sure we're okay there. But, I mean, it may be even better than that, but I'm comfortable saying 25.
Okay.
So having said that, the other piece, not the other piece, that's done, but we still have to, the 2.5 hours in terms of either water or health support is
Right.
still an open item.
Yeah, I think you really have to consider that that's increased Board of Health support, because Lonnie pretty much had a trail that showed that
Yeah.
it was a 5-hour for the water, and that's all they're getting. And that's all they seem to need. What's it?
Just talking about you.
So what's the 2.5 hours in terms of a figure? Do we know?
I'm sorry?
Do we know what the 2.5 hours is in terms of a dollar amount?
Yeah, it's $23.52, they call it $2,400.
Are you using a clerk rate, or are you using?
1802 times 2.5 times 52.2.
See, I see 2.5 hours, and I say to myself, we really can't absorb that somewhere.
It's, well,
You know, that's sort of my thinking on this one.
yeah.
I'm leaning towards a 2, and I might change my mind. We'll have a placeholder for it in the warrant.
Okay.
But I want to kind of look at it. I want to understand the 9 hours in the clerk's office. I want to talk to the treasurer collector, understand what's going on in that place.
They're out,
Only because you're here.
they're out of control over there.
I would say, Missy, I think it's going to get done in one way or another, but in terms of just this discussion right now, I prefer leave it at 2. I will defer or open to opinions.
It's fine.
Okay, so then, staying on personnel, let's hop to the Parks Director next, and then finish off with the coordinator, right? So,
Yeah, I
so
just want to make sure we do have I want a placeholder on the warrant for it, though.
I think it's already.
Okay. Go ahead.
well,
Sorry.
I mean, obviously, when we're done here, right, assuming that this all fits and there's enough room and everybody's comfortable that we're not taking up too much of what we had, right?
Yep.
Then you guys decide that you're happy with it, right?
Yep.
Then I think then she's got to do a comparison with what she's got in the warrant and just reconstruct it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the 2.5 hours is not lost because I made it a 2. I'm hedging my bets, Rich.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I got you. I got you. Okay. All right, so should I move on?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, so Parks Maintenance Director. So I've got that on here for 18,000. So if we just go back on the history on that a little bit. So, by the way, the Sox are ahead 3-0. So to go back in history on this, there was a $15,000 delta to add on a person that's being shared between Parks and Highway Department, right? So he was kind of through we've managed to close up all our holes with trying to make sure we have everything covered and we know the downstream impacts, but this is one that snuck through the cracks
Okay.
on us a little bit. And so a promise got made before we did all the downstream impacts. And so, so this person's on board, is full-time now. We don't have enough money to fund them the whole year unless we put 18,000.
So this is a commitment we've got to cover.
Well, either that or you end up laying the person off, and that's a whole other problem.
Well, I don't think we want to go that route.
Yeah, right. So it's something we've needed for a long time. Alan's said for a long time he needed additional help. I think we have the ability to probably cover it here. He does
this is
not
shared-
need a
this is shared with the
personal
highway.
plan. He's not, he doesn't have a family yet, so that's why so it's 15,000 short on the salary plus another $3,000 on the bennies.
Okay, and this is a resource that's also shared with Highway?
Yes, Highway and Parks share them seasonally, yes.
All right, yeah. 1.
So, okay. So then that brings us then to the last personnel item on here, which is the town coordinator, which I don't even think that's a debate. I mean, that's,
Kidding.
he's kidding, Will. Calm yourself down. And again, I put the 55,000 as a half fee. I mean, by the time we
No, I honestly,
able to get somebody on, we'll
Right.
be lucky if we can get them on by January, or her.
no, I think we're probably seeing maybe a quarter. We're bringing them on in the spring more than likely.
And it's the high end, it's the
90-day
high end of 6
cycles.
months. It's,
High end. No, no, I understand.
and the high end for 6 months, right? Because it depends upon what level you hire them at and what kind of plan they need.
Right.
Yeah.
So potentially 2.5 hours for Board of Health support could come out of that if it's, a little lower.
There you go. Okay, so those are all.
It's repetitive messaging, to make sure Missy knows that we haven't forgotten, see?
Okay, so, so the only other personnel-related ones are the 2 police detail ones, because I remember that the police detail rate changed.
Well, those are ones, right? Those are must-dos, I think, aren't they?
Kind of, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, so for elections, she figures she needs about another 300 to cover that, and I don't have a number from Alan. Alan actually thinks he might be able to get away with just what he's got now anyway.
Sometimes it's not the best thing to get away with what you have. If there's a need there, she's got to be taken from somewhere else, right? Whether it's supplies or something. So if he wants to give it a go, that's fine, but I would hope I understand what's not going to get done or what it's not being spent on to make this happen, right? I think we have an opportunity to cover that for him, don't we?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he's had less details, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Right, yeah, that's the way he communicated to me.
But this,
We're trying, when I can, if I'm at full staff, I try to send him a car.
That's one of the benefits to being up to
Full
the number he
send.
wants.
Right. But it's also, so you think about even the, the receipts around fines and things like that went up. I mean, that was, I don't have as many details because I'm not doing as much work, which means maybe if we should be doing more work, if we can afford it, that requires more details. You know what I mean? It's sort of the antithesis of sort of the direction we're going. I just want to make sure we think it through. If he can cover it, that's fine.
I'll double check with Alan again,
Yeah.
but I believe from the last conversation I had with him, he felt like he
God
had
love him.
enough to cover it.
Okay,
It wasn't a matter of, I gotta find a way to squeeze through. He seemed comfortable.
okay.
Okay, all right, so that takes care of those, so we'll leave the elections at a 1. Okay, so that brings us back, now let's see, what did I skip? Okay, so water meter project, okay, so the water board is not here, except Missy's here, obviously. So the deal here is, and I don't know how you want to approach this, because obviously, it's a subset of the town who benefit from water being delivered to town, but suffice it to say, from my involvement in helping the water department work through their numbers, figure out what the rate to the residents should be, making sure that's accurate, knowing how much, I mean, we actually have an unaccounted for rate of water this year of 27.6%. That means 27.6% of the water that ran through the meters leaving Hopedale
Okay.
never made it to a meter
So this,
to one of our.
this is an investment to put a control in place to truly understand our water intake and our billing.
Yeah, so it's multiple things. I mean, it's not gonna solve all that, right? Because some of that's leakage, and we had 2 big leaks last year, and we did,
Okay.
right? Tim Watson, our water operator, advises that no community ever gets it down below 10%.
Yep.
And there's always some amount of town usage, right? So
Right.
Alan primes the septic system over at Clough, and there's fires that Ernie and the men have to put out, and et cetera, and that doesn't go through a meter, right? But that number's a little high.
This could be, this would be something we should be able to demonstrate an ROI on with a forecasted
Yeah.
potential reduction, right?
So we hurried a little bit because we started talking about this, what was it, last week, Missy, right? So we just started talking about it last week, and there wasn't enough time to really kind of get an ROI put together.
But I mean, it
But there
can
would
be
be-
something we can do.
Yeah. Because
Coming up.
couple of things happen. With the new meters, what would happen is, number one, they're more accurate, and from what I'm told, billings tend to go up because they're more accurate. That's number one. Number two, reading is a lot quicker. All he does is drive by the house, blip, 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 and there's no walking to the, you like that?
Does he make that sound? As he walks by?
Yeah, so it's quicker, so we save money there, and we can actually, because of the way it works, he has a wand that he uses, we could theoretically make a deal with Hopedale to use their wand, right, and their software, and just have them bill it. Now back to the water clerk,
yep.
we don't necessarily need 5 hours.
This feels like a.
So
I'm
there's an
game.
ROI to be had,
Yep.
but it just hasn't been detailed yet.
That's fine, but I mean, it's more, to me, the ROI, we want to look at it, and we probably want to have it as part of the town meeting discussion if it's on the warrant, right? I mean, that'd be a nice thing to be able to demonstrate.
So you're thinking more of an annual town meeting thing?
No, I'm saying if we bring it to the floor, I would think having an ROI would be one of those
Oh,
things
yeah,
that
yeah,
people
yeah.
probably are not used to hearing on some stuff like this. I think that's a good thing, right?
So my recommendation would be making it 2, give them some time to research it and get an ROI back, and then have it on a subsequent STM. But at least now it's kind of out there as something known.
Yeah, the only thing I would ask on this one is the timing. Say we go forward with the idea of doing it, when do they actually get implemented?
When would they be?
Yeah.
Well, the approach would be, Mr. Cataldo recommended, say, $15,000 a year for 3 years, which would allow them to do it in a 3-phase project.
Okay.
So that was kind of the approach they're taking. It's probably, it's somewhere, the cost of it, and we're thumb-sucking a little bit, Tim is thumb-sucking a little bit, somewhere between $45,000 and $60,000 is what they think installed for there's an actual meter, and then there's a reader on something on top, so there's 2 pieces you can install.
Realistically, is there an ability to get the first phase in before the the end of the fiscal year?
If they had money, there is.
Yeah?
I think so. I mean, that's the impression I got from them, right?
That's the impression.
Yeah.
That's the impression I got from Tim.
So is it 20 or is it 15?
What do you mean, is it
If it's
20?
a 3-phase, I think you said 15 a year, a 3-phase project, is the ask for 20 or 15, or is 20
Well,
just
he
the point?
originally, but before I talked to Vinnie again tonight, it was $20,000 a year for 3 years, but from talking to Tim was kind of revising it downward, but he still hadn't nailed it down, so Vinnie said bring it down to 15.
Okay, so it's reoccurring, but on a
Only for
limited
3 years.
basis, right?
Yep.
If we could get it in this fiscal year, I would probably say, let's knock a step off, you know.
So make it a 2.
I'm thinking making it 1.
Really? Okay. All right.
Well, I mean, point is, if you make it a 2, realistically, then you're cutting into their ability to get it in this fiscal year.
That's true.
If we do it in the spring.
So let's see what the numbers come out when we get done. Yeah. All right, good. All right, we're nearly there. Smoke detectors, I don't know, I think this is a 1. I mean, we don't have, I mean, you can talk to this
This is
better
a
than
1.
I can, Diane, right? But we didn't
1?
have a program, I'm sorry?
1.
Yeah, okay, easy, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
we
good.
talked about this one.
All right, fine. Police and fire accident, that's an easy one. We're short money and we have to spend it. So that's an easy one.
$60?
Yeah, it's small amount, just
Fire
a,
hydrant.
okay, highway expenses, so here, this is just, Alan is at a disadvantage because of the unexpected repair to the pipe on Taft Ave.
1.
That's, yeah. Okay, good. You agree with that, Mike? I mean, Mark? Yep. Okay.
And I want you to make sure you tell Alan how quickly I was to say 1.
Yeah, you did. I was impressed by that, actually, I gotta
It's
say.
because the winter's coming, you want your street plowed.
Okay, we're almost there. Public safety vehicle replacement insurance increase. This is a 1. I don't think we have an option in this. We added
It's a
the
1.
new vehicles and it went up. And somehow we missed that as a follow-on impact. Okay, stipends. Well, I'll leave that to you. You guys know what it's all about, but that would be 15.6 recurring.
So that's for half a year or something?
No, that's a full year amount.
I'm leaning towards 3 on that one.
Okay. All right, so we already talked about town coordinator, municipal clerk. Okay, I don't have a number yet, Chief. I know I've talked to you too, Dave, and I think there's some concern that there's not enough money expenses for fire. But we don't have a number yet. But we do have a number that Dave, maybe you can talk to where the number 24,000 came from, but.
I think that was partly the radars, plus just what the chief has been saying, that our expenses were cut so much in 2009, when we did that whole entire exercise, and everybody cut it a percent, that the past 2-3 years, we've just been coming back to ask for more. And we spend at an average of 150 to 160. So that would just get up to the 150 this year, so we don't have to keep asking every special town meeting for more money to pay for our expenses. I mean, just our everyday expenses, without doing anything, we spend
95% of our
5,000.
expenses are non-negotiable.
Yeah.
We gotta pay the bills.
Just without making the place run, we spend 5,000 to 6,000 a month. That's just making it run, never mind our computer contracts and everything else, maintenance.
Gas.
Yeah.
Now, how about the reduction in vehicle repair? That must be going down,
No,
right?
I don't think that's going to, and I'd indicate that it probably won't go down because we don't have the maintenance officer now. Now, if we'd had
That's
the
true.
maintenance officer, it would have gone down.
Yeah.
But because we don't, now we have to send everything out. I think I spent $1,000 last week alone on one vehicle up at Imperial. So we've lost that savings. I would like to have that maintenance officer, I know that's a contract issue, but that maintenance officer is so important. Yeah, I'm gonna have several $1,000s of bills on fire trucks that could have potentially.
So one of the
done
things I want to
inside.
do is some of the smaller maintenance stuff. I mean, there was a time when Allen Highway did this work for you, and it was a timing issue, I believe.
Well, he did the oil changes.
Right. So I just want to make sure what we can absorb, we absorb. My feeling on expenses right now, given November, I'd rather go 2 on this. But I would also want to, let's go back and do a run rate, Rich.
Do
And
what,
just
I'm sorry?
Do the run rate that Dave just, Dave, you've already
Oh,
done it, and just say, okay, if we're running at this much, and we're just increasing it from other sources, then maybe we right-size it. You know what I mean? Definitely.
I think we did.
FY
I don't remember the
15,
detail.
and we
Yeah, well,
planned for the
We had done
spring.
that back 2009 or just before that, at 160 for police. And that was, we turned back money. And then, we've gone down considerably since then.
Yeah, so
Let's
let's
go
look,
over it again. We did do the run rate.
yeah, run the
That's
option,
what we came with that.
actuals from '09 through now, and, if nothing else, it's gonna help for the,
So last year, we did an STM, 2 in the fall, and then we did a March and a June. So, because the whole approach was we were trying to get down to 3 STMs, right? So if we didn't do another STM until March again, let's say February, would you run out of fire or
No.
police expenses by then?
No.
So,
I'm thinking 2.
huh?
That's why I'm leaning towards 2.
Oh, so that's what I'm thinking. Maybe that's when we deal with it, we get a little more accurate and see how we go.
But we'd also set ourselves up for next fiscal year to right-size it if we need to, right? Based on actuals over the past 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the two, because we will not run out before March.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to put.
Right, Dave?
Thank you. It's on you now, Dave.
Yeah, but I think we still, for the purposes of tracking, right, we really should just reconfirm the 24 and then see what you need in fire, so we'll plan
I
it
know
long in
I made a
advance.
document right when we did it, so I'm pulling that up right
Okay.
now.
All right. Okay, so that's all of them. So now, if we take a look then at what we end up with, is if we, so out of the 67,860, all the priority one-time expenses we came up with leaves us with 10,000 left over. And, I'm sorry? Out of the $67,860. I'll send you this, so you'll have all this, right?
So
I'll
what
send
you're
it to
saying
you.
is, every decision we made has not impacted that first column, right? 10,000.
Yeah, because we kind of left, all the one-time stuff, we kind of left, we kind of left where,
Well, part of
Where
the
it
help
was.
was reducing that clerk from 30 to 25.
that's the recurring
That's going to be
side.
on the recurring side, yep.
We're talking about the one-time
Oh,
side.
I'm
And we
sorry,
changed a
okay.
couple
Yeah.
to twos, too. So,
So,
Diane,
so for each one, you'll see there's a column there for one-time or recurring.
I
And
see
if it's
that.
one-time, I'm only taking it out of the free cash number. Yeah.
So,
So-
Rich, one second. Diane, you have a question?
There were a couple things that weren't on your list that I had sent you an email was it last night.
I thought
There
I
was,
thought I put them in here.
Potential purchase of Misco Springs and the associated engineering costs, neither of which we have dollar amounts for. Is that something we should,
Oh, I remember you saying that, yeah.
Yeah.
Rich, how could you forget that?
Well, I actually didn't forget, I just knew I didn't have any dollar
Teasing you.
values.
You've done a fantastic job.
I think, so that's one thing. The other thing, it'd probably be a 3, though, is more senior and veterans abatement program, implementing that next fiscal year.
Right, and I think, yeah, but you got to remember.
Not for the STM, though.
Yeah, well, remember that when the financial impact of that only impacts us like almost a year later. So, because they work at first, and then the abatement comes in the
Yep.
following financial year, so, I mean, that,
Just thinking ahead.
yeah, okay.
I got an email from Ann Mazar after a land use meeting, and she said that Misco Springs was sold to the person who was looking at the property. So,
Yeah, the story's not over, though,
yeah.
from what I understand, there's still some,
Well, the town has, you have the legal right to take it by eminent domain, which would mean you'd pay fair market value, and the title transfers immediately upon that action. So you have plenty of options.
so I think they're not done discussing that. Okay, so, all right, but for November, I don't see that impact in November, right?
Engineering, we might need to allocate, that might impact November. In terms
Okay.
of, unless we were able to take it from, reserves or something like that and then reinstate it, Rich?
Okay, so what do I call this? Misco Springs Engineering, what? Engineering fee?
yeah,
Okay.
I wouldn't even know how to estimate that.
Well, I'm just going to make a note of it here now and leave it blank, and when you get a number, then I'll just.
Well, that's
put it
like, I don't know, how would I go about getting an estimate for that?
I don't know.
We'll
circle back offline on that.
Engineering for what?
To see if the site was suitable for
A water?
water supply.
So you
appraisal.
could talk to a civil engineer would be able to help you with that, and probably,
So we'll take that off.
Shea
We
Engineering.
want to capture it, we got it
Got
captured.
it captured,
We'll
yeah.
figure out how to get a number put together.
Okay, so back to the summary then, so let me just
Okay.
repeat what I said a second ago. So out of the 67,860, with everything we identified as a priority one just now, puts us at 10,418 left after that for free cash. Then the risk-adjusted recurring revenue number was 177.50, and we still have 60,320 left over. So we got a little bit of a leeway there. So
But we have that other issue too, next year.
Which is?
The, Cinco coming back.
yeah, but that's next
We
year.
talked about it.
Yeah,
That's-
we're just talking about FY14 here.
Yeah, but the reoccurring, if you spend it, then it's not there next year, right?
Right, that's a good point, so. But by the same token, we do have a levy limit increase, there's other things we have that happen next year, yeah.
So am I hearing that we got about a buffer of about 70,000?
Right, 10 one-time and 60 recurring, yeah.
Okay, and then we can have that discussion maybe on the 21st about, do we put that to stabilization or CapEx or something like that, right? Because that would be some of the the other piece you started with, saying, do we follow the guidelines, right?
Right, yes, what do we do with that? Right, exactly right.
Mr. Carvey?
Yes.
My two interest articles, they're still on the warrant, right? The two interest, they're outside of the levy, so you don't
that's-
need to worry about this. I
right.
just want to make sure they don't get taken off.
Yeah.
Just because we didn't discuss them tonight, because we don't have to, because it doesn't come out of, like, tax, like levied stuff.
I'll talk to you tomorrow to make sure.
Good idea.
Okay.
It will be on there when we look at it. That's what I'm hearing.
So
One
I'm sorry.
second, do you have a question? comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on MISCO, how important it is for us to be looking at that. We could run piping up into 16 or even down Hopedale Street, and before you know it, we're selling water to Hopedale instead of buying it from them. And the other thing, and even Northbridge and Upton. And the other thing to think about is if that thing, casino goes forward in Milford and they run into a water issue, this could be a very beneficial thing for us. Never mind the fact that it provides us with a water supply in our own town. We really want to look hard at that Misco Springs.
Yep. Understood?
So one more thing, so that left us 60,000 or so, right? And so the risk-adjusted amount that we took out of the number, I have to calculate it exactly, but it's, let's say it's 13 plus another, let's say it's another 25,000 or 30,000 or so. In order to be able to use it, we're gonna have to capture it and raise and appropriate it and put it somewhere. So if we fail to do that, then even if we get it, we can't use it.
Okay, say that
See what
again.
I'm saying? So in other words, which is why Gene always puts a stabilization and a CapEx item on the, right? So we could put in one of those two sources, or we could even put it in FinCom reserve if that's what you want to do. But we have to capture it somehow in some
Right,
account.
right.
Otherwise, phew, it's gone.
It's gone, okay. So there does need to be an article that takes care of that 70-odd thousand.
It takes,
Put it somewhere.
takes care of the 20% plus the 70,000 we're not, well, not the 10,000 for free cash, because that goes into account and stays there. We
Right,
don't have to worry
right.
about that. But but we have to raise
So
and
the
appropriate
risk-
the 60,000 plus the risk-adjusted
Yep.
20,000 that we didn't use.
Okay, and you can provide Diane the wording on those two items, right?
Yeah, it's the same as every other
Okay.
one. You just got to decide where to put it. So we should, on the 21st, we should discuss, I'll calculate the total amount, the 20% we risk adjusted out, plus the amount we're not spending, and then we're going to want to put that somewhere.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I
that
would think,
amount-
wouldn't the 20%, since it's a risk adjustment, to hedge our bets a little bit, wouldn't it make sense to stick that in stabilization?
You could put it there, or you could put it in, yeah.
I mean-
That's a discussion we should have, yeah.
Okay.
But we got to capture it, or we'll lose it.
We will capture it. You are not going to let us forget to capture that, I know you
I'm not going to
are.
let you forget to capture it.
All
Okay,
right.
that's it.
All right. Any other questions,
Perfect,
comments?
thank you.
Appreciate everyone's participation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Missy, are you all set with the other item, which is basically we have another item, municipal clerk, water commission clerk, you good with that? Where we stand right now? No, that's a 2.5, no, I'm good with your write-up. We gotta find 2.5 hours, right? Okay. All right, thank you. Look at, everybody's leaving.
Way to clear a room.
I know. All right, Mark, let's, I would like to, the net metering agreement, I have not had a chance to look at that closely. Some quick ones, do we want to discuss the CapEx account? It's on the agenda, it's a standing item, we don't need to, No, I think the rest of the agenda is going to go pretty quick. Letter of intent for net metering, you saw that, right, Mark? This is Northeast Realty looking for us to, I would like Bob to see that agreement, because when he says it's non-binding, that always worries me, because I'm signing it. So let's have Bob take a look at that. We'll bring that back. I am also kind of curious, and I might make some phone calls on my own on that one. But that, along with the, what was the item we just put on the list? We should just revisit that as well, the interconnection fee. I think this all goes together. So we should probably bring that back on the 21st. and either decide to sign it or not sign it, and I'd like Bob to review it before it comes back.
When Duncan gave that to me, he suggested he might want to meet with one selectman before attending a meeting. Do you want to try to get together with him first? Or do
I
you
can catch up with him on phone, or if I need to meet with him, that's fine. Mark, do you have a preference?
Nope.
Okay. So I'll do that, but let's also, when you talk to Duncan, make sure we need to see the final proposal so town council can look at it.
I think he sent it electronically.
Okay, as long as that's final, right? Okay. Next item, consider request for extension of hours of operation for End Zone Sports Pub. So Diane, that's one, did you happen to get a chance to see, is this a regular extension we do, or is this net new?
I didn't see one in the file for Thanksgiving. I've seen
Okay.
them for either
For
Christmas or
New
New
Year's.
Year's.
Okay. So this is just, on holidays, End Zone's not the only establishment that does this, but they tend to extend their hours. This is, I think, the night before Thanksgiving, the Wednesday. They want to extend their hours to 2 a.m.,
So basically an hour.
so I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve the extension of operating hours on November 28th, 2013, from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. for Roy Ventures Corporation, doing business as the End Zone Sports Pub, 39 Milford Street.
Step down in second. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item, meet with MRI regarding Town Coordinator Administration Recruitment Services. So I think this is something that, so MRI is one of the three. It's actually it is the service that has, to me, the most specificity. So I think we probably want to engage them now, Diane. I'd like to see what, we've gotten a proposal, haven't seen a contract, but I suggest we bring them in for the 21st if we can. And let's get the contract beforehand, get it out to Bob, have him review it. So,
One of the options was to forego the full panel interview.
Yep.
So I think in order for them to draw, unless you want them to do two contracts, one
do
with,
two.
one without. Okay.
because one of the questions we'd have is what is I actually don't want to forego the full panel, but we haven't actually talked about it as a board. So Mark, as you'll see, I like to keep my options open. So, Rich, if you want to join us for that discussion, if you have any questions, be happy to have you participate. We're on the 21st, you'll be here anyway, but we're going to bring MRI in to kind of sort of finalize and hopefully start to kick off that process.
I think with those proposals we got, they were all generally equal, except MRI stood out because of the guarantee
Yeah.
that they had.
Yeah, and they also, the one other thing I noticed is that they seem to get, potentially extend their services into negotiations and
Yeah.
things like that, but they all sort of do a job profile, a recruitment service, but they seem to be the most in-depth, so, I agree with you. Okay, so we'll do that for the 21st. We discussed the Municipal Clark Water Commission. We don't need to talk about CapEx. I have not read the minutes from the 23rd, and I was not here on the 30th, so I suggest we hold those off, and we'll do that in our next meeting. Last item, appoint A.J. Byrne as the Parks Department rep to the Community Preservation Committee.
Move to appoint A.J. Byrne as the Parks Department representative to the Community Preservation Committee with a term to expire June 30th, 2015.
Step down in second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so for those of you left, any other topics you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I'd like to, if okay with the board, we'd like to give you an update from the Mendon Police Station, Friends-of-Mendon Police Project.
I would love to get an update. No, I'm actually quite serious. I wish the chief and David stayed. We could have all gotten an update. Shoot.
Fortunately, the chief is aware of the update already, so
Okay.
There won't be much news that he isn't aware of already. So the Friends of the Mendon Police have been working quietly for the last 4 or 5 months on the project, and mainly our focus has been getting a full set of construction documents for the project. So we hired the services of R.C. Searles architectural firm to develop a set of construction documents which, we can solicit bids off of, or donations and volunteerism for getting
Yep.
The infrastructure installed. We received the set of documents. We had to put it in front of the Department of Public Health for their approval, which is part of Mass General Law. We just received the approval from the Department of Public Health on the design today, so we're very excited about that. We've also just had a group of volunteers over the weekend install the electrical duct bank, which is actually the conduits that are going to power the police station. So all that infrastructure is now in place. The well is in place now. The septic system is in place now. So by the end of October, our goal is to have all of the outside infrastructure completed and buttoned up, and all the work will actually be within the envelope of the police department, new police station. So now with the design, we actually have a lot of wind in our sails. There's a lot of motivation on the project. And we believe that things are really going to start picking up steam. We don't have a projected estimated completion date because obviously it's donations and volunteerism,
Right.
but we're doing a great job of really moving this project along now, and we're excited to see it moving. But the biggest obstacle really was those drawings, which we do have now, and also the approval of the DPH, which is now complete.
It's great news.
Yeah, so we're really moving along now, and even the chief was down over the weekend helping install the electrical duct banks, and we had, Rich, how many people would you estimate over the weekend? 18. Yeah, 18 people over the weekend, really working hard for this project. Those excavators and backhoes and skid loaders and bunch of laborers and everything, and it really came along very well over the weekend, so we're very
Great.
excited.
If there's ever if you ever need like lifting and help like that, I'd like to know if you need help. I can definitely, Saturdays I can help, so.
Well, we'll definitely take you up on that. We're going to need a lot of help in the future, so
Right.
we're very excited.
So, great work, great job. The question I'll throw out to the committee or the group is, as we're approaching the spring, and you start looking at things in terms of pushing it over the end line. I know we've talked about in past FinCom meetings about, is it time to possibly look for, a debt exclusion, wrap it up, things like that. I just asked everybody to look at it, and I understand that it's a lot of work going on now, but if there's a need, and it sounds like the envelope, as you called it, is targeted for October, and it seems like you're going to get there. And I think a lot of the internal stuff, I think the chief's even mentioned in the past, he's got grants lined up and things like that. But, it gets to a point where if you think we can push it over the end line through the, a town meeting process, consider it. Because I
Yeah.
think it's, we have that opportunity cost now where if we're making, it sounds like got traction, let's wrap it up, because I think there's a lot of opportunity finishing it up and getting it up and running and looking at further things like regionalization. So,
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and we'll certainly discuss that further in our committee. We have brought it up in our committee in the past,
Yep.
and that is part of our thought process, but we're looking forward to really getting some work done inside and getting it to a point where folks in the community will really see the fruits of our labor, and will probably be more interested in getting across that.
it's going to become real to them when they see it,
It is.
So, excellent. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
All right. We've got about 90 seconds left, so,
Real quick, did you want to have a motion on moving into contract negotiations with MRI?
sure, yes.
Okay, I move to enter into contract negotiations with Municipal Resources for the recruitment of a town coordinator/administrator.
Step down in second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then the last, do we need an executive session tonight, Mark, or can we defer that until the 21st? What do we think? Happy to go either way. So I'll either accept a motion to go into executive session, or I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Step down in second. Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye. Have a good night.